Hello, friends. It's Thursday. I'll be hosting a hangout tonight at 8 p.m. East, the first one in a couple of weeks. So I hope to see you there. Lots to talk about, and it's always a great place to connect and remind each other that we exist, that this is reality or our reality. And I always leave our hangouts feeling inspired and replenished. And tonight, I'll be shirtless. Now you're not coming? I was joking. I'm kidding. I'll wear a shirt. I'll wear 2 shirts. I talk to a lot of smart people, but today's guest really impresses me every time I talk to him, which makes me want to talk to him more often. He's the senior editor of Arc Digital on Substack. He's a political science professor, I guess most importantly, his main job, at the University of Illinois. He wrote a book called Drones and Terrorism. That's what I interviewed him for the first time. But he's just so smart when it comes to talking about politics, national security, culture, and as he describes it, occasional nerdery. Real smart guy, and his ability to reference things and explain things is on display on today's show as we talk about this latest dumb, horrific idea by most people's opinion of giving Saudi Arabia permission and maybe even giving them the enriched uranium that they've so needed and wanted forever to have a seat at the table, the nuclear table, if you will. Lots to talk about with that and so much more with Nicholas Grossman on today's show. Obviously, the latest on Iran and that there are no good options and so much more that we talked about. So that's what I've got for you today. I don't have the normal news segment this morning because I'm messing around with video and trying to make the news segment video and got pretty carried away, but I'm getting much closer because that's what you got to do to stay in the game and to grow and to get new listeners and subscribers. And I refuse to do a lot of the other things that I think are beneath me. So I may produce a separate news segment today for you and add it to this later. But right now, I got my conversation with Nick Grossman. You can watch this on Substack at Stand Up with Pete, where we were live yesterday. And please subscribe. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic, or get a paid subscription over on Substack and go follow and support Nick Grossman as well. Here is our very enlightening conversation from yesterday. Here we are with Professor Nicholas Grossman. I'm very happy to have him back. He's one of the smartest cats out there. Cats? I think that's a term of endearment. He's somewhere with his family. I got him on short notice, so maybe we'll hear children. But more importantly, Nick, I really appreciate you taking my call. I always love to hear your perspective on everything, and it's desperately needed. Thank you.
Sure. My pleasure.
Okay, so lots to talk about in terms of foreign policy and national security, but I also want to talk about what the hell's happening here at home as well. But first, I just got to ask you, late news from the Wall Street Journal last night that somehow our commander-in-chief made some kind of deal with the Saudis about allowing them to be able to enrich nuclear material. They don't have a nuclear weapon. We've never wanted them to have a nuclear weapon. One could argue they've attacked us or were involved and knew more than they say about 9/11 and all the other criticisms about Saudi Arabia. But what did this news mean last night? Why is it important? And why on earth, do you know this, can the president of the United States, any president, make such a deal on his own? Because the deals he's making and the people he makes them with on his own are not great, Nick.
No, and this one is really bad, just really bad in many different ways. So I'd say one of maybe the single dumbest thing is that we're currently at war with Iran, and one of the official reasons for a war with Iran is to denuclearize them, to not only prevent them from having a nuclear weapon, but also to heavily restrict or even entirely eliminate their ability to do civilian nuclear technology like power generation so that they wouldn't be able to maybe sneak their way to a nuclear weapon.
Right.
And right at the same time, we're trying to do this by helping their main regional rival get closer to nuclear weapons, which is about as big an incentive, I can think, for giving the Iranians to want one as possible. So that's reason one. Two, why so many people in the broader national security community, nonproliferation community oppose this is because not only with nuclear nonproliferation, everyone that gets it makes it harder to prevent somebody else from getting it. So we always want to try to restrict the numbers to keep it that it's almost impossible if someone has nuclear weapons to get them to give it up. So we don't want them to get it in the first place. But with Saudi Arabia, there's been a big fear, and this is the same reason why we don't want, another reason at least, why we don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, is a fear of what's called a nuclear cascade. basically, if the Saudis get one, not only do the Iranians want one, the Egyptians and the Turks also want one too. And because otherwise they feel like they're at a big regional disadvantage to one that is either, an adversary or rival, or at least an occasional competitor, sometimes a frenemy.
Right, right.
And then on top of that, we have any of the Al-Qaeda stuff. And so even if, let's just say, for make it easy, I'm going to give the Saudi government every benefit of the doubt. Everything that they said about, anything related to Al-Qaeda is totally true, and they were really helpful and had nothing to do with it at all in any step. Even so, we really don't want a bunch more enriched uranium floating around Saudi Arabia because somebody could steal it, because the Saudis don't have the robust controls over it, because there could be a rogue agent in their, intelligence services or in their military who is sympathetic to somebody like Al-Qaeda or ISIS or other jihadists and takes some enriched uranium and passes it to them or sells it to them because they're desperate for money, or all these many other problems that could arise from it. And all three of those combined, really bad. And I don't know how to explain it as why it happened without the Saudis bribing the president. That they've been funneling money to Trump's private bank accounts since he was just starting to be president, right in the first term. One of the biggest examples of this was, and anybody can look this up, but after Trump got elected, Saudi princes started buying out whole floors of his hotel at his hotels at times that were really low season, like when the hotels wouldn't be bought up, and in some cases not actually staying there, and often overpaying rather than, hey, no, this is the low season, we're going to pay a lower rate. No, they paid a higher rate and didn't even really use it. So blatant bribe. The Trump and the Saudis both with Live Golf was another way. They hosted some events and surely slipped him a bunch of money as a way to host events, and that stuff is not public. So, whatever number they wanted to give him, they gave Jared Kushner a bunch of money, even where investing in Kushner's fund, where all the Saudi financial advisors said, don't do it. He is a bad investor. He always loses money. He doesn't have a good business record. And the Crown Prince overruled them, and which is pretty clearly I don't care if he loses the money. I'm buying access to the administration and buying influence. And so there isn't a good national security reason. I mean, I guess, if I wanted to be a little more generous, I'd say that the Iran war has gone badly, and the Saudis are probably upset, and throwing them something like this might make them feel a little better and object a little less. That's the only kind of national interest reason I can think for it, and it doesn't balance out the costs at all.
Why is the war going bad for Saudi Arabia?
Oh, simply that Iran has blockaded the edge of the Strait of Hormuz. That's where Saudi Arabia sends a lot of its stuff out via ships. And then the other main way that just happened was, since they can't get it through Hormuz, they've been sending a lot more on what's called the East-West Pipeline, and which goes to the Red Sea on the other side of Saudi Arabia. And you can see that was less than 1 million barrels a day before the war, and is now in the range of like 4 to 5 million barrels a day. So almost quadrupled approximately how much oil is going that way. And the Houthis, the group in Yemen that are allied with Iran, just announced that they are going to block the strait that is at the bottom of the Red Sea. And the big oil tankers are too big to fit through Suez Canal at the top of the Red Sea. And so this is now, Saudi Arabia has been cut off from its main export in both of its primary directions for exporting it. And they are fundamentally a oil power. They're fossil fuel power. They have tons of money from it and can be the big player in OPEC and have been able to control global oil markets. And now they can't. And yeah, if I were them, I'd be pretty pissed off. I hope that maybe they don't, I don't know, if this is the guy you were going to bribe, that I'm not sure what you expected, how you expected it to go better. But,
it's such a crazy thing to think that an American president is so pliable on the most important of foreign policy decisions, like whether or not we should start a war or whether or not we should give or allow or look the other way to a country that wants enriched uranium, or I could go on and on. But man, at the same time, he's burning down a relationship with our closest, bestest friend up north in Canada. He's giving the Saudis something that they and others, as you mentioned, have desperately wanted for a long time. Do you have anything to say about my reaction there before I move on to the next big question?
Oh, just that I totally agree with you about the Canada thing. That a lot of Middle East stuff to focus on frustrates me, but Canada's great, and it's been a great U.S. ally, and the partnership is great. We have the world's longest land border, at least if you include the Alaska part, not just the lower 48 to
I'll
Canada,
include
but really
it.
long land border that's totally at peace. That's amazing. We have so much trade back and forth, make so much money. We have all this cultural exchange. The just alienating Canada, throwing away this robust. We do joint. If you want me to connect to the nuclear issue,
sure.
We do joint North American Missile Command. That the Canada is. They're the ones doing a lot of the early detection, that things like Russian missiles, for example, Russian nukes would fly over the North Pole. We rely on the Canadians to be able to spot a lot of that early. There's just so much to throw away. And
I just visualized, I had no idea about any of that. I just visualized the Canadian guy going, just don't tell him. As the missile flies over, just don't tell him. It's crazy. It sucks. It's really a bad situation. All of it's a bad situation. Specifically, going just back quickly to the Saudi Arabia thing. How can the president do this? Because we know he's so corrupt and so bad and a cartoon villain, and we know he's going to do terrible things that aren't in any American's interest, or hardly any American's interest, you might argue, but certainly are in his and his family's or a few of his friends. How is he allowed to do this? How does there no checks and balances on that? The legislative branch doesn't have anything to do with who gets enriched nuclear energy?
It's in sort of a murky area in that Congress could assert itself more if it wanted to. But this is largely in the realm of the president as both commander-in-chief of the military and chief diplomat for the country. So things like sanctions and export controls are largely out of the executive branch. And so while Congress ultimately has the power to regulate trade and do other things so they could assert themselves more, that we've been doing it for a long time where, think about it, when you hear occasionally there was like Congress passes a sanctions package for Russia, but a lot of times with, I don't know, back to Saddam Hussein or with Iran or with North Korea, you'll hear like the president has imposed sanctions on whatever, or a lot of weapons restrictions. It'll be China can't buy these most advanced AI chips. And then that is effectively the president and the executive branch telling business that we forbid this, and you cross us if you don't, and there'll be all these other problems for you. And the businesses almost always comply. Sometimes try to get around it in ways that are not technically illegal to still make money, which is a problem, but mostly comply. And that's actually another one of where he authorized the sale of those chips to China. That here's AI technology of the future, and China was restricted under the Biden administration from buying these, and now they can again. But that is an example of something like just like Biden restricting the sales of the chips to China, that did not need a separate act of Congress.
Yes, all great points. Man, I don't know how you know all of these things and how you're able to present them so quickly and efficiently. But I always love talking to you. I've already learned a ton in under 10 minutes. Just a great reason to subscribe and support Nick here on Substack at Arc Digital, by the way, and he's very active on Blue Sky, where you can get his take as always. And so before this deal that the Wall Street Journal broke last night that we've been talking about with the commander-in-chief giving nuclear enrichment capabilities or permissions to the Saudis, which is just a thing I can't believe I'm saying. I wanted to talk to you about with the latest in Iran, 10 days of bombardment, and where we're at, this new development where the Houthis seem emboldened. They're allied and aligned and supported by Iran. And then another detail that I saw you reporting or mentioning on Blue Sky, which is the Iranians are attacking many of their neighbors there in the Middle East, but not the UAE. And why? So there's a lot of change and a lot of developments. It certainly does seem that they have the upper hand. I've seen a lot of analysts say this almost seems conventional wisdom, and maybe you agree. Maybe I'm sure you could add nuance. There are no good choices for the American president in the war that he started with his friends in Israel.
That's exactly right. That there really is no good option. The Iranians have us. I don't know a better way to put it. And the basic reason why is because the war has now changed from anything to do with like Trump was originally talking about regime change and unconditional surrender, and then total elimination of the nuclear program. Any of that stuff has been totally dropped. And now the U.S. goal of the war is to get the Strait of Hormuz open, which it was before the war. So basically, we're now at the point where the war is about trying to, and not being able to, but trying to get back to what we had before he started the war and lost. And the reason why it's such a problem militarily is because the United States effectively needs to prevent Iran from not only being able to fire anything into, and we're talking about hundreds of miles of coastline, they need to be able to convince insurance companies and shipping companies that the risk is too high to them to go to do it. So, Trump can, I don't know, bully the media, perhaps at least some outlets, into saying what he wants, or some American businesses, or, something like that. But you can't bully insurance companies into insuring things that they think are going to lose money. They just don't do it. That they'll insure things when they think they can make a profit, and when they don't, they'll say no, thank you. And actually, I just saw this of where the insurance for going through the Strait of Hormuz, the war premium. So it's usually 0.15% of cargo value is the standard for insurance, and it's up to now 7.5%.
Holy shit!
And so yes, and means that that's their whole profit margin gone. That's why none of them are. Very, very few of them are risky.
Their profit margin is that slim, and if that's the case, they lose it because of the high premiums on insurance brought to you by the Donald Trump Aflac Insurance Agency, which is his dumb choices. The ripple effect that they're having in this case, and you've explained it perfectly. But continue.
So that they just won't do it. Shipping companies won't take the risk. You can imagine they're carrying what amounts to tens of millions of dollars worth of oil. That oil belongs to the oil company. That's who's going to make most of the money. The shipping company makes it by their money by moving it. The insurance company makes it by guaranteeing it. No shipping company will go without insurance. You have a spill, and all of a sudden you're out $30 million, and they don't have that just lying around to lose. Like, that would really hurt the business. So anyway, that's why none of them are sailing. And all Iran has to be able to do is to scare them enough with one or two shots. And they've clearly been able to shoot at these tankers, they're big, they're slow moving, they are not hard to hit. And Iran can miss a few times, and all they really need to do is get one in every once in a while, and that's enough to scare them. Well, the U.S. task is immense. And the part that is so incredibly frustrating, as somebody who's been in political science and national security circles for a while now, is this is something that pretty much all of us have been saying for like 20 years. And not only that, I'd say all American presidents really absorbed. So my go-to example of this is Bibi Netanyahu has been prominent in Israel and been prime minister most of the time, a majority of the years since 1996. He has tried to get every American president to go to war with Iran, and none of them did it until Trump this time.
We all watched him do it. It's not like that was
It's
not like that was a covert conversation where he was quietly prodding and pushing. We all watched Netanyahu. He came to D.C. and addressed Congress. He brought a picture that he drew of a bomb. We remember this. So pick up there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but just
no. But you're right. Exactly. It was a whole open presentation, and still, so it wasn't like they just decided to start pressuring the United States or requesting or whatever, how they would ask it. That's been going for a while. Everyone said no. And my go-to example of it is George W. Bush. When there's the Iraq War, about half of U.S. casualties for a period of time were due to weapons that Iran was providing Iraqi insurgents. It was a special type of explosive, these shape charges. And there was a lot of interest inside the U.S. military, and especially among the neoconservatives, regime change circles, for going on and doing a regime change war against Iran. And Bush said no. He said, we've got enough problems of dealing with here in Iraq. A lot of those problems were, his fault, but that we're dealing with enough problems here in Iraq. And so take the hit and don't get into war with Iran. And so, whatever anybody thinks of George W. Bush, a good standard is he realized that war with Iran was a bad idea. Well, and just the last point on this, there's a seminal paper by a professor named Caitlin Talmadge, which is in the premier journal in national security circles, or at least academic ones. It's called International Security, and it's from about 20 years ago. And it says here, boils down to don't attack Iran because they'll close the Strait of Hormuz. Here's all the leverage they have, and so here are all the other international options to pressure Iran, like sanctions, which was the thing that led to the nuclear deal that Bush started working on, and then Obama negotiated and completed.
So nobody in national security circles could deny what everybody knew, including all the rest of us that just listen and, to shows and to read people like yourself, that this is exactly what would happen. This is what would happen if an American president, the American military attacked Iran. That this is a potential likely point of leverage that they would have. And now it has happened, and it just looks so bad as a result. Another thing, though, that I hesitate.
Can I give you one quick thing on that, where there is actually a different argument, or there has been in at least some of those circles, And a good example, this came out of the Israelis and a group, for example, in the United States called the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, is what they call themselves, have been advocating for regime change war with Iran for ages. And what they argued was that the Iranian government was weak and very fragile, that just a little bit of use of force would knock it over, would make it collapse. This was their argument against the nuclear deal, that Iran was on the verge of collapse, and here came in Obama with this agreement that restricted their nuclear program but gave them economic benefits, and that saved them from what was surely going to be this natural revolution, regime change, turning into a more democratic, more pro-Israel, more pro-American Iranian government, which, even when you said it at the time, I thought sounded really stupid. But now they got their war, they tried it, and it's been proven badly, terribly wrong, just like a lot of us, including me, have been saying to them for years.
Yeah, and by the way, that's how the public, people like me and others who platform smart voices, should lend our credibility. For those who said one thing was going to happen versus those who said another thing was going to happen, the thing happened, and only this person was right, or that organization or that person was wrong, and therefore you should get more credibility, because foreign policy is not science. But when you analyze a situation and you're a smart person and you have the right interests, if you will, you often get it right, and those voices should be elevated. I wanted to add that. The other thing, though, I did hear a lot of national security experts arguing was that if the United States ever attacked Iran, that Iran could attack us back in very vulnerable places. We heard for years about sleeper cells, or they could attack our grid, or any other kind of asymmetric warfare. My dad told me he thinks that, and my dad's not a conspiracy theorist, and I think he was joking. He's like, I didn't see as many wildfires like this when I was little. So maybe the Iranians were going around setting fires, but that one is not so serious. The rest of them are serious, hypotheticals that we've been presented. And I don't even want to talk about this because I don't want it to happen, but I don't know. I feel like if they had a sleeper cell, or if they had these capabilities, they might have done something by now.
I think so. I mean, a lot of the sleeper cell stuff was,
they have so many proxies, but they don't, yeah.
I mean, like, what we saw, kind of the rare example of a terrorist sleeper cell was the 9/11 guys, where that actually they came to the United States, most of them legally, stayed, had, jobs and other stuff, and were waiting for, trained and prepared, and we're waiting for the moment. But that is pretty rare. And I mean, I certainly can't say there won't be any sort of terrorist attack that is connected to Iran as a result of this. But so far, what we can say is that there is decently more damage being done in regional war, that any sense of what Iran is going to do to get us back is going to be some elaborate plot to kill a, relatively small number of American civilians inside the United States. And that doesn't really seem to be the case. I mean, that was more, I think maybe somewhat of it we can trace back to a pretty typical American problem of thinking everything's all about us and that everybody is always primarily thinking about us. Right. Whereas Iran's reaction to it has been much more of there are a whole lot of American military bases in the region. Yeah. And they're not all that well protected. We're going to shoot a bunch of those. And you know what? All these Middle Eastern Arab states, all these Arab autocrats that are hosting these bases, well, guess what? We're holding you responsible for this too, and we're going to make you pay a big price for it. And so at minimum, another effect of the war and of Trump's decision to start it without a good reason was that I bet all those countries are starting to have pretty serious conversations on whether the partnership with the U.S. is worth it, because the fundamental deal, and this is like with the Saudis, for example, the fundamental deal was that the United States provides security and general kind of global stability. And in return, the Saudis provide a steady flow of oil to keep the economy going and cooperate on counterterrorism. That's sort of the core issue. And both of them agree on Iran and agree on restricting Iran. And that was the core deal. And the United States broke that deal by starting the war and getting them attacked, and also has proven that the air defense that the U.S. had set up there is not really enough, that Iran, which is relatively weak compared to the U.S., is nobody would have said that Iran is a top tier military power in the world. Still wouldn't say that, so at least shouldn't. And they're able to get those shots through. Yeah. So is the deal with the United States really worth it anymore? And the problem with it, and this is another part that makes it so stupid, is that the big way that the United States prevented Iran from firing on those bases, from closing the Strait of Hormuz, any of that stuff, was deterrence. It was that, hey, Iran, if you start any of that, we will do to you basically what the U.S. did to them in March and April, just bomb the hell out of you and destroy a lot of your stuff and kill your leaders. And Iran, not wanting that to happen, didn't do it. But the fact that Trump started it unprovoked meant that they didn't have any reason to hold back anymore, and in fact had a lot of good reasons to play whatever cards they could possibly have.
I hate that I found myself during COVID almost rooting for COVID, because it was the only way that Americans were going to wake up, is if we are directly affected by something. The parallel to that would be gas prices. And I hate that I'm rooting for gas prices to go up and stay up, because there's millions and millions of Americans whose lives that destroys and makes a lot harder as a result, and everything gets more expensive. But I do find myself there. I do find myself hoping that this chaos continues up until November, because it almost feels like the only way people will wake up is if they are directly affected. Less than 1% of Americans serve in the military. Nobody cares about the military. It's just patriotic porn when fucking flag waving nonsense that most people don't even know an active duty veteran in America. And so I hate being in this position to almost be rooting for it. But my question isn't about my weird kind of masochistic optimism here, but it's about domestic politics. How does what is happening in Iran? I see Laura Ingraham. I see little speaker Mike Johnson, and others saying we've got to wrap this up. How does the war in gas prices affect the midterm elections?
So just right before I address, I want to say about the wrap up thing. This is the problem that we're in. The Iranians get a say in when the war ends. So this isn't like this is why I'd say this is decently worse for the United States than Afghanistan or Vietnam, both of which were losses. But when the United States left, that was the end for the U.S. Whereas when Trump attacked Iran and then Iran attacked back, the United States lost freedom of navigation, which had been the guarantor for freedom of navigation in the world since World War II, lost smooth access into the Persian Gulf and to allies there and to bases there and all that other stuff. And then when they went and declared this the peace, and they made what they called Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU, and tried, and the big idea from the Trump administration apparently was to make a lot of concessions and say that Iran controls Hormuz and to pay them a lot of money, and to just kind of pretend that they didn't and operate otherwise.
Yeah.
And Iran said, we're going to try to get what you said in the document we can have and that we want and we think we deserve. And that they're treating kind of like war reparations or like a spoils of a successful war. And so then the U.S. tries to sneak some ships out via Oman's coast. And Iran says, no, you can't, and shoots at them. And then the U.S., shoots back. But it was always because they were trying to pretend that everything was solved when it was never close to solved. And so that is, I don't know when it ends. I am pretty darn confident that this is going to go on for some time, and that in particular, and this ties up with the midterm elections and what I take kind of you were getting out of what I like referring to as a touch the stove theory.
Yeah,
that it wasn't enough to warn a lot of people that it was going to be bad. It wasn't even enough that the first term had all these different problems and ended in a year of pandemic and economic crisis, which he mismanaged. Not only that, but that I don't know, they wanted to do it again. Whatever reason, a lot of people really wanted to do it again. Some people, and whatever it is, but they voted that way, and then that it's not going. All the warnings that this is going to go bad because X, Y, Z. No, it won't. No, it won't. No, it won't. And then won't really accept that yes, this stove is hot until you actually touch it. But I think that, and this is one where I guess I technically could be wrong, but I really don't think I am, that the economic damage from this is so severely underestimated, and that it reminds me of, in a way, not exactly the same, but like the housing bubble and then into the financial crisis. So it was 2006 when a lot of problems in the mortgage market started appearing, and we didn't have everybody finally, okay, actually, there's a real problem, until Lehman Brothers couldn't pay any of its monthly bills and collapsed. And then everybody they owed money to went, oh, no, we can't pay our stuff either. And the whole thing fell apart. So it was they kept the music going as long as possible until it just smacked him in the face.
I don't like that analogy. I don't like that analogy because I don't know what you're talking about in terms of the economic costs. I mean, it sounds like you're also talking about a ripple effect. How much economic damage has this war? It sounds like you're saying it's done tremendous amount of economic damage, or it hasn't yet, but it will. I'm not sure what you're saying.
It's done I can do this by analogy. The asteroid hit, the tsunami hasn't really hit us yet. So
I don't like the analogy.
asteroid already
Do a
crashed.
different analogy. How about a different, better analogy that's not as mean and scary, Nick?
I don't
No,
know.
it's
I
fine.
do think it's pretty scary. That,
Go ahead.
Right now, a lot of, and this is even with the gas prices, that what we saw with oil go up and then go back down and now going back up is still in the realm of speculators. And the United States and a number of other countries and also some companies are drawing down on their oil reserves. So they are currently papering over the problems, and that is just in the oil market. A lot of other things are blocked coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. For example, nearly 50% of the world's fertilizer supply is based on things that come out of there. So that's the sort of thing that is going to hit with fertilizer being really expensive for next spring's planting, and then being making a lot of food more expensive, and a lot of this just reverberating out through the economy. Let me give you actually what is probably the best analogy to this, which is the 1973 oil embargo. So a similar Middle East war, oil embargo cut off. And the economy didn't really hit bottom until more like 1975, and then a prolonged period of stagflation. So basically, these things take a year or so, give or take, to really reverberate through the physical economy, and then a lot of the problems arise. So I guess long story short, I think the economy is probably going to be pretty bad in November in a way that people notice, and is likely looking like it's getting worse, with gas prices being a really prominent example of that.
You are familiar with the history of this country in all ways, certainly national security history, certainly the last few wars and conflicts, and certainly those that happened in our lifetime or just before, like Vietnam. But, Nick, how will historians look at this conflict and the damage it causes if it does get far worse? Because you just laid it out there, and others have as well, in terms of the world before and the world after. We had freedom of navigation. We had all of these. Man, you should go back to the 13 or 15 JCPOA, that deal. We had that. He undid that. I think you have to start there. And then with this war, how will historians, I feel like there can't be a lot of disagreement about just the reality of what the conditions were in the Persian Gulf and with those partners before and after we went to war. Is there going to be a lot of discrepancy there among serious people?
There's always disagreement among historians on some of the details, but no, I largely agree with you. I think that when future historians look to pick a mark, like to mark the date of the end of the American century or the end of American unipolar moment or American hegemony or anything like that, that they're going to pick the 2024 election, and that there might be specific moments shortly thereafter that they add to it, like the way that the United States flipped from being the premier kind of power that was advocating open trade since World War II, since the collapse of open trade caused the Great Depression in World War II, or at least contributed heavily to it. A Great Depression in World War II, so the United States big on open trade. And now, instead of open trade, now we're just sort of tariffing everybody and bribes, of throwing away things like rule of law and good governance in favor of corruption and the incompetence and ideology. And so that was a lot of maybe economic, good governance, rule of law. And then Ron is the military one, that the sort of showing the limits of American military power, or because it's not only that the United States is failing to achieve its military goals and has been killing a lot of people. There's also doing it without allies at all. There has been no war, literally no U.S. war of anything close to this size that has been done without allies. Again, I keep referencing Bush to make a point of where I was pretty darn negative about the Iraq war, but he lined up like 40 allies. The British sent 30,000 troops. The Polish sent troops. The Australians sent troops. That they had a whole alliance that did it together. Then after the occupation, they got it widely blessed by the UN. A lot of different Arab countries contributed money. Other people tried to help do the reconstruction. He lined up none of that. And that the biggest one that I'm personally having trouble dealing with, is that the United States leaders are now an advocate of open war crimes. That's new. That we had things like, and I don't even mean, which was really, really bad when the U.S. bombed the school, killed the girls' school, and it was like about 150 people early on. I am as confident as one can be from the outside, but that was a mistake, meaning that they hit what they intended to hit, but it was adjacent to an Iranian naval compound, had formerly been a part of it, pretty sure that they thought it was an Iranian military target when they fired at it. And yet, with Trump first threatening to attack a bunch of civilian targets, threatening what really sounded like genocidal language, destroy the country, wipe it out.
Yeah.
And now, just in the last round of fighting, so within like the last week, the United States has deliberately targeted water facilities in Iran, which is just a unambiguous, unquestioned war crime and with no strategic value. It's not like the Iranian regime is really concerned about its people. They went and slaughtered like 30,000 of their own people this January and last December with protesters. And so it doesn't put pressure on them. If we make it that some Iranian villagers are unable to get drinking water, that doesn't open the Strait of Hormuz. It accomplishes nothing. And so whereas I'm still, processing of the hardly going to say the U.S. is perfect. Certainly a lot of criticism about the U.S. and foreign policy, but there was always something about like the way Russia's acted in Ukraine. We don't do that. We're better than that.
Right.
We do a lot of bad things, but that we do not do. And you know what? Now we do.
If you were questioning Pete Hegseth yesterday, the Secretary of Defense, what would you have asked him? I felt like it wasn't a great line of questioning. There were some interesting and decent performances, but I don't know. I wasn't blown away by those Democratic senators that had access to him, much less the Republicans. What would you ask him or anybody else? What's an important question for any American civilian or military leader to have to answer about this war right now?
That's a good question. And even I was thinking, I don't know if I have a go-to answer.
Okay.
Where part of the reason why is because he did and would just lie a lot. Deflect, change it. Like, what would be the value of the question as much to try to, get that out into the public somewhat. A lot of it about, what I've been at, if it were a normal Secretary of Defense or even close to it, things like, what's the strategy? What is the way that you are connecting the means that we have to achieve those goals? How is that achievable? What are you actually trying to do? Because right now it really isn't clear. They're still talking about the nuclear program, but I think that would just get a bunch of lies. And so
you're right. You're right.
To the extent it really matters of the hearings, and Republicans are going to do what they want anyway, the Republicans in Congress. So it would be just like, I don't know, could I make one moment that maybe went around blue sky that asked him a question where he was awkward or somewhat embarrassed? I guess. Just a really brief. I see someone in the in the chat saying, please don't whitewash the Bush administration just because it's not as bad. And I just want to highlight that my argument here is that, it's, how bad you thought the Bush administration is? That's the bar, and this is worse.
No,
it's a way of highlighting sort of the problems.
I didn't see that at all, and I thought you were trying to create perspective. Even they did this. Nobody is more of a critic. I was about to say nobody's more of a critic than me. Obviously, there are plenty, but I paid attention, a lot of attention, protested in the streets, covered, interviewed, a lot of people were involved, including a generation of veterans whose lives many times in many places were destroyed. So
sorry, I got it. I got my question for him. I think it would be, given how concerned the administration was about potentially running short of things like missiles and air defense assets by potentially giving them to Ukraine, arguing that we needed to save those for an event with China, what are we doing now that we've used up most of it with Iran? What are we doing about that possible event with China? I think that's what I'd ask. But again, I would just expect them to lie or disseminate or bullshit in some way. Yeah.
Nick, it's so great talking to you. I learned so much from talking to you, from reading you. I watched this conversation. I started it with Brian Beutler. I think he's one of the smartest guys in political analysis. And you talking, that was as good as it gets from me. Who do you like? Who do you want to recommend? And what else might you be doing that you want to plug before I say goodbye?
I like Brian quite a bit. Read him. Greg Sargent, I think, is great.
Greg is great.
Who's at the New Republic.
And you should listen to his podcast on Deep State Radio. He does the Daily Blast. I love Greg Sargent and Brian's off message on Substack. Go ahead.
I think that's good. I like the publication Liberal Currents quite a bit, and a variety of writers there. I think that so that one is edited by Adam Gurry and by Samantha Hancox-Lee, who are both good writers in their own right, but also editors with the publication. I think that one thing I really like about them, of the way that they've portrayed it, is as trying to kind of reclaim the idea of liberalism, that it's something we totally took for granted, that the word liberal evolved in the United States to basically mean whatever the Democrats are doing, or maybe even better, whatever the kind of centrist Democrats are doing. And it just means center left at any given moment in the U.S. And that's not what the word meant for such a long amount of time. It meant liberty and freedom and all these great ways to fight for it. And so what I know that Samantha has a running thing about remember who you are, liberal. And what are her references? It's liberty storming the barricades, and it's the Union beating the Confederacy, and it's the civil rights protesters, and it's the women's lib protesters, and it's all the different, labor rights. It's all the different people that have various times fought to make the world a freer place, and that this is not an easy thing. And it reminds me of how there's this George Orwell line that I'm going to have to paraphrase, but it was that the British left woke up in the 1960s and came to believe that peace was the natural order of things, and peace and freedom were the natural order of things, and they're just really not. There's something that things like freedom and liberty really takes a lot of effort to build up, and maybe we lost some sight of that, but that there is a really great core idea. And I guess a final plug of I was able to work with them. They put together a project that I participated in that's called the Reconstruction Papers, which looks for a post-Trump vision. That's something I know people can read for free online. That the Reconstruction Papers, I think if you Google it or go to Liberal Currents. Also, there's a hard copy that they're selling, and where that has my contribution is a lot of things about what a Democratic trifecta can do with a bare majority, but about taking power seriously. Things like that would be ending gerrymandering and expanding the Supreme Court, and give statehood for D.C. and Puerto Rico, and all these other how the system actually works things that Obama and Biden neglected in terms of favoring policy. And the problem was, those policies mattered and were important. Then Trump comes in, all that power stuff is gone, and just undoes policies illegally. And a lot of them are not there anymore. So that is a start. But then also, I think what's great about it is there are a lot of other writers who do a longer term, bigger vision, who try to answer questions like, what do we do about immigration? And what do we do about military leadership, especially now, say that some of it has been corrupted or ideologically politicized? What do we do about questions on, gender? There's really a lot of great stuff in there that is designed both as here's something that we want to get conversations going so that if Democrats manage to get power in 2029, they can really hit the ground running and use it the best, but also that we do this now so that people are thinking of this positive vision of something that anti-Trump can drive a lot of stuff. I think it's really going to help in the midterms, but that it also helps to be coupled with, and here are different ways that we're going to make things better and what we are striving for, as opposed to just trying to undo this and get back. It's we're not trying to get back. The system has been broken. That makes me quite sad and disturbed on a lot of times, but it is broken. We are not going back, but we can, once we get out of this, build something better. And that is a lot of go get the Reconstruction Papers at Liberal Currents, and I know you connected me with Adam. I should get him on. I cannot thank you enough. This is so good. You're like a human, but also AI. Nicholas Grossman, really appreciate it. Get back with your family and tell them I really appreciate them loaning your husband and dad to us. All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks. Bye, everybody. And that was it. That was my conversation with Nicholas Grossman. Go follow and subscribe at ARC Digital, ARC Digital on Substack, and follow him on Threads. Let him know that you heard him here on Threads if you're over there. And that's what I've got for you. That's all I've got for you today. And I might be back with a news segment, though. I'm working on these video elements, introducing it to the news segment so I can post it on YouTube and get a lot more attention there than just on the audio version of the podcast. Got to grow. You got to grow or die. And I don't want to go back to a commute and working for somebody else and all of the things that I didn't like about corporate media. I love this. I love doing this. I need your support and help to grow. And sometimes I need to experiment and learn new things and always have conversations with other people in the game, which is one thing that inspired this. I'll tell you more about that at tonight's Hangout. I hope to see you there at 8 p.m. tonight. If you're a paid subscriber, you'll get a email around 7 p.m. with a link. And if you're listening still, you probably already knew that. Thank you, both of these. Jon Carroll, take us away. When the tyrants taunt you in the siren's teeth, you better stand up. Stand up. Let the brave meet the challenge, let the weak flee. Oh, you better stand up. Stand up. When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up.
kidneys, you gotta stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up. That's right. We got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for loss, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We got to let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right. We got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it than now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up, stand up. Stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up. People got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Stand up.